Hi, I'm Margie Eldrith. I'm the director of Sideshow. So if I was to describe what the show's about, it's about many different things, but the biggest picture is it's a story of conjoined twins, Daisy and Violet Hilton, who it's actually based off a real story.
We are playing real people, by the way. These were actual girls who actually lived.
They were born in the early 1900s and then they moved to America.
It starts out with them working in a sideshow.
In the 1920s.
Yes, in the 20s.
And they basically meet these two boys.
An agent.
Yes, an agent.
And a choreographer. And they kind of see them and they're like, okay, you're performing in this sideshow. We think you could perform on vaudeville.
Yeah.
And trouble ensues.
In doing that research and like finding things out about them, like they are really beautiful people. And like I just wanted to be a part of that story. I wanted to be one of the people telling their story.
I also think the way the show's written, it brings sort of a humanity to them. It goes way beyond like, these people have like a birth defect.
Or
do you know what I mean? Like it really gets into like their actual personalities. By the end of the story, you completely forget that, you know, they have this condition because there's just so much more to them than that.
So this show is a difficult show for students to grasp, or as actors, usually, but I'm really pleased with the twins that I have and the suitors that I have that play opposite the twins. We've really had a lot of really good discussions about what these characters really are, and they're playing them as if they're real people, as they should, and they're not caricatures or characters in a show. We've had like so many hours of discussions about what all of the lines mean and who they mean to each other and all the different connections between them, and that I find really fascinating in the show.
I think it comes as a shock to a lot of them how personal they have to make it for it to be perceived as real. A lot of them it's easier to be like, I'm gonna act sad, but like to really connect your character to something in your life that's real, and then like whatever emotion comes from that is an honest and true emotion, and it's much harder to do, but it's much better to watch. My favorite part of working on the show is dropping all the characters in, and like they all have their eyes closed, but you can see the physical manifestations of like what they're thinking about, and it's just really cool. Like one time I was doing with Abby and Lex, and they both started crying at the exact same time, and it was just like crazy how in sync they are, and it was like really cool to see that and like see that impact.
What's been most challenging is putting myself in Buddy's circumstances and going from there and like taking in consideration the time period of when this was written and just applying all these different situations and all these different actions and just making it true to the character. I feel like that's really hard for me personally. And what's also really challenging is understanding why he's doing what he does.
I read the script a few times, and by a few times I mean a lot of times. And I really, I like to test waters, and usually for me it's just about repeating usually a line over and over and over until something either feels good or it feels in line with what the character or how the character would say it. And really it's all about experimentation. I would like to consider myself one of those actors who just would like to run a scene and just feel it out and go for it and see what works and what doesn't.
Cheesy as it sounds, I close my eyes and I just take a deep breath and put myself in the space. And I see where I am, I see, like I said, the circumstances that I'm in, and I really see what Buddy's going through at that time and like the moment before. The moment before is always really important because then you get to really just transform into that character and see where they are at that time and that moment.
Maybe like the physicality of it is the most challenging part. I feel like it can look easy. Like I know when we were looking at videos of like people playing the twins on Broadway, and like it looks very easy, but it's not very easy. It's very difficult because we're attached at the hip and we're at kind of an angle. And so walking, like when we first started walking, like it was just, we were having trouble with that. And now we're dancing, which is like a whole nother thing that we have to tackle.
Even just in rehearsals, like going to get your script, is like, okay, Abby,
Yeah.
like,
Like,
do you
do you
want to
wanna
go get
go
our
get your
script?
script?
And
Yeah.
like I'll leave my water bottle across the room, and I'm like, okay, like I have to go get my water bottle.
So it's like we both have to walk.
And at the beginning of the process, it was funny because we would have them walk down the hallways. We actually tied them together. I think first we used a little stuffed animal to make them hold it between their hips. We called him a Link, so that they wouldn't drop him, so they could feel being connected. And then we ended up getting ace bandage and wrapping it around their body. And at first it was really awkward. They couldn't figure out like who was going to walk which. Are we going to walk with our right foot first? Are we going to outside feet? Now they just walk. And what's really cool about the rehearsal process as well is they start finishing each other's sentences.
The dancing is really, it's gotten a lot easier. I think like the more that you practice it, the better that it gets. But the dancing, I think, is definitely the hardest part physically. And also just emotionally, this is a really hard show, I think, on both of us.
Just the stories they go through.
It's a beautiful story.
And what they lose and what they sacrifice for each other is immense. I don't know if I could do what they do.
Yeah.
Every show, like we basically relive the best day of our life and the worst day of our life.
Yeah.
And
It's a lot. So we have, in the original version of the show, there's like a flashback sequence where Daisy and Violet are telling Buddy and Terry about their lives and like everything that they've been through up to this point, like working at the Sideshow. And in this version, Mrs. Eldredge decided to cast like miniature versions of us. They're 2 freshmen, and they are so great. And it's been really interesting, like working with them, trying to learn like how we move together, and then like trying to emulate that themselves. Like,
yeah, to me it's interesting because they, I think, started working on the physicality of this after we did. So like as we watch the scene of our younger selves, we kind of watch them be like, you know, like us a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Like they, like I feel like they're going through the same process as we were.
Yeah.
And it really feels like
It's
you're
cool to
looking at
watch.
yourself,
Yeah.
I think.
That's
And they're really
awesome.
great actresses,
Yes.
and they're working so hard.
First of all, I love the opening number. It just grabs you and you're like, oh, this is gonna be so cool.
It's such a good way to open up this show and to introduce all these characters that you're going to learn to love by the end of the show.
I really like Come Look at the Freaks. I think there's a lot of religious imagery in that song that I think is so powerful. Everyone in the show has a connection to God, and it's like referenced a bunch of times, and I think no matter what you believe, it's a really powerful image.
Yeah. I love Come Look at
Anyone's
the Freaks.
Yeah, Come Look at
And
the
I
Freaks.
just like, I love like songs where like the ensemble is able to show off the characters that they created, because sometimes
Yes.
they don't always get the opportunity to do that, and they really get to do that in that
Yeah.
song.
Everyone has been working so hard to create these
Yeah.
awesome characters.
They're so cool.
And
Like the Freaks, oh my gosh, they're so cool. And everyone too, like the reporters with everything, the doctors, everything, all of
We have students involved in this production from all of the different majors. The poster was designed by Peter Quo. I had him come in and do a photo shoot with our 2 actresses, and we hazed up the theater and got them dressed up and put their wigs on and their costumes. And so when you look at that poster and you think, wow, that's a really professional poster, it's actually our kids in the poster. So I'm really proud of that, and I thank Peter a lot for that because it's amazing. What do I want the audience to take away from this production? I think the main thing is to see every human as a human, that the humanity of people is the humanity of people. No matter what you look like, no matter what your struggle is, all of us are connected.
There's a really important message to be taken away from this show. I really like it a lot.